Hello and welcome to the Fierce and Fabulous Duo. My name is Dr. Toni and I am here with my fabulous co-host, Sandra Katina. Hi, Sandra.
Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. Well, everyone, it's been a while since we've been with you, so we wanted to make another video. And we have an important topic to share with you. It's something Sandra and I have been talking about because it's something that's come up in my life with my family. So I wanted to share this. So about a month and a half ago, I changed my daughter from one school that she had been attending for 5 years to a new school. And this was sudden and unexpected. And it happened because there were two boys who were bullying girls and other boys. But of course, for me, I'm more concerned because it's my daughter, and I was seeing more the behavior of the negative attitudes of the boys towards the girls. So that was my focus. It had been escalating. It started last year. There were some disturbing sexual behaviors where boys were putting their fingers through pants and simulating a move that is known as the chuckle finger in porn. So this is something it's something to be aware of that this is what being watched. It's one thing if you're an adult, that's your decision. But if children are either finding this because they're not supervised or they're finding this because their parents are watching it, they're going to school and then they're copying these behaviors. So that was last year. My daughter was not involved, but I became very concerned. So this year, when there started to be incidents, and my daughter, for example, was slapped in class, nothing was done about it. The teacher pretended like she didn't see it. It was a little too much, and I couldn't look the other way. I realized that this is not the environment that I want my child to be in. I don't want these behaviors to be normalized. So, my daughter has changed schools and things are much better. But Sandra and I have been talking about how concerning this is for children to be engaging in these behaviors and some children to be suffering and the school to not be supporting parents who are concerned. If this is not addressed at this early stage in life, these are the boys who become men who then sexually assault women, harass women, you name it. So this is a topic that we wanted to share today and also just let you know to be vigilant that this is happening as early as my daughter is 8 years old. And last year we started to see it in second grade in 7-year-olds. So, Sandra, I know we've been talking about it and you had some concerns, and I wanted you to share some of the thoughts that you had about this as well.
Tony, as you know, I was absolutely outraged and infuriated that this happened to Amelia. And one of the things that I just didn't understand was why this boy was not immediately expelled. He had been, that's sexual harassment. Uh, a little boy is sexually harassing little girls in his class, and his behavior was accepted. The teacher pretended she didn't see the slap. That's violence. Pretended she didn't see it. Why was it this child expelled? Instead, you told me that the principal said, well, this is age appropriate behavior. It's not age appropriate behavior. It's abnormal behavior. It's sexual abuse, physical abuse. And that was very, very disturbing to me. And I am grateful that you took your daughter out of that school. You put her in a school that's better. And you also told me that several other, thank God, normal mothers like yourself took their girls out and put them in other schools. You also told me that the new school knew all about this abuse that had been going on. Would you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's a problem. Bullying is a big problem. That there are different levels of the problem here. One of the problems has to do with this sexual behavior, and another problem is bullying that thankfully my daughter wasn't experiencing. For me, it was more
Thank
about
God.
normalizing these behaviors because in our
Yes.
society, it is unfortunately normal often for men to pick on women, for, the little girls to get their hair pulled. Do you remember maybe your family
Oh,
saying, "Oh,
yes.
he likes you. He's teasing you. He
Yes.
likes you." It's normal. So, it's become normal there. And a lot of these schools, they perpetuate these problems. They don't
Yeah.
sit back and say, "Well, how do we make this a better place? How do we raise children differently? How do we teach them
Yeah.
differently?" This new school has an innovative methodology and they look at things differently. And so children who are experiencing, I kind of pulled my daughter out before she had problems, before I needed to send her to a psychologist. Some people didn't wait. And so there are other children who are at that school who already have been bullied and have had problems and
Yes.
are, in therapy to try to deal with that and to try to recover from that. So it's known. It's not the only school. It's not the worst school in the world, but there
Mhm.
there are there are many schools right now where this is happening. And
Mhm.
now that I've started to research schools more, I see, these new programs coming up and trying to deal with these problems. And I mean, on the news, there are more reports of suicides more in teens. Suicides because, no one put a stop to the cyberbullying. No one put a stop to the harassment, the over sexualized behavior towards girls. So
Mhm.
it's unfortunately
Mhm.
it's being covered up by a lot of schools because
Yes.
they don't want to get in trouble, because they don't want to unleash a can of worms. But it's only getting worse. It's yes, it's something in the U.S., but it's not just in the U.S. It's around the world.
Mhm. Yeah.
So yeah, my daughter's school knew about it, and from what they have told me, they accepted her kind of knowing that she had been in an environment where this was normalized. So they were very sensitive to that, and they really have wanted to make sure she feels accepted
Mhm.
and that she can speak up and that she feels
Mhm.
comfortable, because they know children who come from those environments, it affects them. It
Absolutely.
does.
Absolutely. You also mentioned that this child, in addition to this sexual harassment, this boy was running and jumping over girls' heads, and he also pushed a young girl down a flight of stairs.
Correct. Since we left, a girl was pushed down the stairs,
Mm.
and yeah, other incidents have happened. So, clearly it's not just us. We left, we're not the
Right.
problem. Two other girls
No.
in my daughter's class left because a lot of people, they justify. It's hard after your
Mhm.
child's at
Yes.
school for 5 years and it's like a home, and the other people, they're like part of your family, and you become a dysfunctional family too. It's hard to separate, but it's so important to kind of sit back and think, what is going on, and will these other parents be partners with me? Um,
Right.
there were partners with me who wanted change, but the school was not able to listen, or they did their investigation and they came to the conclusion there was no bullying going on. Um, maybe they can say that to other people and other people will accept that. But I have a PhD in psychology. I know about
Mhm.
bullying. You can go on the website for the American Psychological Association, look at the definition of bullying, and there were children experiencing that at the hands of particularly two boys. And then they were manipulating other boys who were weaker and also, bringing them into the loop to bully others.
Oh, God.
So, it's very concerning how in a few years when these kids are in high school, when this cohort,
Oh, God.
they're in high school, what this will look like. And so many parents, I mean, when I was leaving the school, I went to my daughter's last day was a Friday, and on a Saturday there was the yearly picnic. And I said, I'm going to go to say goodbye to people. I don't want to leave on bad
Mhm.
terms because I'm not leaving on bad terms. You're not able to give me what I need, which I don't think I'm asking for a lot. I'm asking for a safe environment. But,
Mhm.
I want to say goodbye to a lot of great teachers and families. And just about everybody, almost everybody, came up to me and told me some terrible story.
Yes.
Like, oh yes, this happened to my daughter, and one told me my daughter graduated and she doesn't even want to pass the school.
Oh
I
gosh.
mean, so why do you keep your child there, right? There's nothing that's so
Exactly.
wonderful. There's so many schools, and I'd rather sacrifice some academic component and have my daughter be, feel well, feel safe, because it's just not worth it because,
No.
whatever the science is wonderful or because they tend to go to better schools. That's in the end, in the scheme of things, that doesn't matter as much.
Thank God you acted quickly. You took the kid out of school. You got her in a better school. She is safe now. The teachers were sensitive to her needs as someone who experienced this, who witnessed this sort of abuse. Do you remember when we had lunch? We were in Long Island. We had that nice day outside, and the three of us, it was you and your daughter and me.
Mhm.
And that's when, we had spoken about, you told me about this, and I was outraged. And I told your daughter, you are a strong girl. If that boy ever does anything or tries to do, you beat the crap out of him. And your precious daughter, she kind of looked like a little nervous when I said that. But as girls, as females, we're brought up like you said, he's a boy is punching, he's hitting, he's pulling our hair, and oh, he likes you, he has a crush on you. No, no, he's a little monster. He means you harm. And I think that it's so important for children, little girls, to have moms like you who are letting them know this is not acceptable. I am not going to keep you in a school where you're in danger. We're going to find another school. And you did, and you interviewed several schools. And the school she's in sounds fabulous. As an adult, we experience sexual harassment our whole lives just because we're women. And I worked in corporate America. I dealt with that BS.
Mhm.
In the dance world, I dealt with that. When I founded my dance school in 1997, within 6 months, I was working 6 days a week. And for a little period of time, for a short period of, I was working seven. And a friend of mine who's a former ballet dancer called me up and said, Sandra, you can't do this. You need at least 2 days off. And in your case, I know you're a workhorse, so you've got a big business, at least one full day. And
Mhm.
I immediately gave one of the classes to my professional dancers. And ever since, as a dance teacher, I was a personal trainer, a stretch therapist, a corrective trainer. People like my clients and my dance students, they trusted me in a way that they didn't trust a lot of people. They told me intimate things about their backgrounds that they normally would not share.
Right.
And I was shocked at the amount of the large number of women who told me about sexual, not just sexual harassment, but rape that they experienced. Some of them went to the police, some of them didn't because it was so horrible that they didn't want to be humiliated twice. And I was just so taken aback by how many women have experienced this as adults.
Mhm.
And I'm just happy to know that here in New York, you could go to Gleason's gym, learn how to box. You could learn some Krav Maga, uh, kickboxing, jujitsu. I think that it's so important for women to learn how to defend themselves.
Mhm.
Now, I was attacked a couple of times by men, both times broad daylight, and I fought and I got away, but it still traumatizes me. And a lot of women couldn't do that.
No. Oh, that's so scary, and you're
Yeah.
so brave to share that with us because so many of us have these experiences and we just keep them here. We don't share them.
Yes.
But it's important we talk about it and help each other.
Yeah, it is. And when I owned my dance school, God, I can't believe I'm so emotional about this. I 3 times I sponsored my grandmaster, the late Reno Morales.
Mm.
He was a world renowned martial artist. He was a true grandmaster and Shotokan karate, but he had like 5 or 6 other black belts. And he was my best friend. And I sponsored him 3 times because, I trained professional dancers, I trained amateur dancers, I trained many populations. And I had talked about Reno, and when I sponsored him, first of all, he was the most charismatic man I have ever known. Period. He, oh, he had these big brown eyes, and you just melt into them. He was so intelligent, and he was the best ever. And the first time I sponsored him, we went to Central Park, and it's a 2-hour seminar. And at the end of that class, women who told me, I don't really want to kickbox. I just want to meet Reno. Every woman was in love with him and said, I want to train this guy. And when I met him at the boxing gym, within 1 week, the owner of the boxing gym said, every woman left their trainer. They're all training with Reno now. And he was magic. He was not just an incredible trainer, but he always gave me such confidence. And he's like, what are you afraid of? I taught you right. You know how to fight. But, get attacked. And I remember reaching out to a bunch of people, and it was really scary.
Mm.
But I managed to fight off 2 young men in their 20s. I was in my late 40s. And the second time I was attacked, broad daylight, Hell's Kitchen, it was shortly after I had spinal surgery. I was in an accident 7.5 years ago, and I suffered many injuries. The worst was a spinal cord injury. And I had walked from Hell's Kitchen to 14th Street. And I was so proud of myself that I was able to actually buy food and carry like a heavy bag with me.
Mm.
And when I was about 2 blocks from my apartment, I was brutally attacked by this frigging lunatic. It was just a random attack. No one helped me. I managed, like years ago, I might have hit him. I might have physically went at it, which is crazy. But because I was terrified, just had this surgery, I was terrified of getting hurt and having something really bad happen. And I remember just running, and I had a friend, black belt in karate, boxer. He was special forces, and he was a manager of a restaurant. And I made it to the restaurant. The guy was on my tail, and I screamed, Alex, I'm being attacked. He's like, I got you. The man flew, and he took care of that guy. The guy left, but he didn't leave immediately. The guy was nuts. And then there was a woman, a tall, really well-built woman, and she's like, get in there now. And she like totally took charge, and she ran out with Alex. And the both of them got rid of the guy. And the woman came in. We became friends. She said, I was in the Marine Corps 7 years, and I was in the Army 7 years. You did the right thing. You got out of that situation. That man will never ever do any, he's not ever coming here, not with me and Alex. And she said, and I'm walking you home. And I was like, thanks. And I was crying. I was really just upset because I felt so vulnerable.
Yeah.
And Alex came by. He's like, don't worry, I'm walking you home. And I was like, it's okay, Stephanie's walking me home. But you know, it's scary,
It's
having these things
scary.
happen.
It's scary, but
Yeah, it
Sandra,
is.
you reacted the way you needed to react, right? You knew you weren't in physical condition to fight this man off like you
No.
were years ago. You ran, but some people freeze. And I
Yeah.
put myself in the situation. I don't know what I would do. I'm thinking of the time when I was in Peru, and my husband would always tell me, lock the doors. And I'd
Yeah.
laugh at him. What are you talking about? I have my hammer here. I rode around with a hammer. And I said, if anybody
Of
tries to
course.
open the door, I'll break their head. Well, what do you think happened
That's
the
right.
time when I was going through a bad neighborhood and they opened the door? I froze. I just froze and I screamed in the guy's face. I mean, thank God it ended there. He just wanted my purse, you know. But sometimes, it's good to be prepared. It's good to train because
Yes.
sometimes you freeze. And I never thought I was the person who would freeze. I hope in other situations I would fight back or run like you. But, the first time it happens, it throws you off and a lot of times you're not ready. But you're a
Absolutely.
warrior. You are the woman we aspire to be, Sandra.
I don't know, Tony. It's thank God we were both safe. I remember when that happened to you. We were supposed to talk that night.
Mm.
And I was like, hey, what happened? What happened? And I contacted you and you told me, and I was so upset by it, but very, very grateful you got away. You weren't hurt.
Yes, of
And
course,
that's the most
but
important thing.
you're not thinking clearly. And what did I do
No,
when
no.
I unfroze? I got out of the car. And then I said, now they're going to rob
Yep.
my car. I got out of
Oh,
the car
God.
with the hammer. And
Oh,
I'm
good
like,
for you.
where
Yeah,
is this guy? Now I'm ready to take you. Where are you? And
exactly.
I said, oh,
Exactly.
now they're going to rob my car. So I got back in my car. I drove around looking for the guy. That I was more disappointed after with myself, that I wasn't ready,
Yeah,
that I didn't lock the door, first of all, because my husband specifically said that day, lock your doors.
right.
I was upset with myself for that, and because I wasn't ready. But I would hope that, I learned from that and I would be ready in the future. Um, Hopefully to lock the doors and not have to deal with that, but just to,
Yes.
either run or fight. Probably run.
But the but what you just said, you froze. That's a natural reaction
Right?
to
The deer
getting
in the
attention.
headlights.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're a deer in the headlights. You're shocked. Your entire nervous system just freezes. And that's when they go for us. But you had the balls to get out of the car with your hammer and say, we're, and people saw that and said, let's leave her alone.
It's
So you did
crazy.
react. Yeah, yeah. You did react. And that's the most important thing, that you reacted. And also that you didn't get hurt. And God forbid, cancel. If he did anything, I know you would have grabbed that hammer if he pursued
Yes.
further
Yes,
assault.
that was minor. I mean, what you went through, I have not been through that. I can't imagine, but you dealt with it so well and but you had trained. I think that training throughout your life have really it's always at the back of your head. Like
Yeah.
you got to move. You got to get out of this situation. So thank
Well,
goodness.
the first time, well, with those two young men, and it's weird, they were speaking another language that I had knowledge of. I mean, not that I can speak it fluently, but I can curse. And I started screaming at the top of my lungs, and then I started cursing them in their language, and they were like so confused. They were like, "Where did she learn that?" And I was, I got away, thank God. And I called a girlfriend, and I was really upset, and I said, "My God, I better call the police." And I called the police 2 hours before they came, and there were two officers, and one was just bored out of his mind and said, "Oh, they got away, nothing we could do." And the other guy was like engaging in conversation with me. And I said, "Listen, these two men attacked me. I'm sure they're doing something to somebody right now. I'll get in the police car. Let's look for him." And they immediately
Right.
said, "No, no, no, we don't do that." They wouldn't even take a police report. They refused. They said nothing happened. In fact, you look really nice. And I did look nice that day for a change. Usually I was in my dance clothes, but that day I was wearing a designer coat. I had boots. I had a nice dress on. And anyway, they said, the one cop that was engaging with me said, "You look really nice. They were just hitting on you."
There you
And
go.
I
There you
felt as
go.
though I was assaulted. I felt as though I was assaulted twice. And I said, "No, no, you don't understand. I fought them off." And I didn't tell them, I just said, "I'm a dancer, we're very strong." And I was livid. And what I started doing was I started going up to all the elders in my building. And at the time I was living in a luxury high rise, it was a gated community. And I said, listen, here's what happened to me. Be very, very careful. Look around you. Maybe you could carry a little weapon. And every single elder, and also women, I was talking to women, every one of them said, oh, last year I was assaulted. Last month I was assaulted. 2 years ago, my husband was beaten up, and I was like, I've got to get the hell out of here. And I did. I moved. But the fact that, and there was this elder man, and he was Italian American, he was 90 years old, and he walked with a walker. And I learned that he was a 3-time Golden Gloves champion in his youth. And he was an ex Marine. But, he was older and, he was not in the shape he was in. Well, some SOB, young guy, attacked him. And that old man knocked him out with one punch.
That's a
God
good
bless
story.
him. And I swear to God, when I found out all those elder people were beaten up and robbed, I like suddenly I was like a vigilante. And I thought if I ever see that, I will protect them. It's horrible, it's
It's not fair. It's not fair, especially when you're blamed somehow. You have to blame for being attacked.
yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's the way the authorities sometimes deal with it. That's the way people, the blaming the victim. The girl was asking to get raped because she went out alone, because she
Correct.
drank, because she did this, because she did that. And that's another video we want to talk about when women go out, ways to stay safe, because that's the
Yeah.
world we live in and we have to do things to stay safe. But it's not your fault if something happens to you. It's
Yeah.
not your fault at all. You didn't ask to be victimized, and but because it's not a perfect world, we need
Right,
to
right.
we need to take measures and sometimes
Yeah.
yeah, take justice into our own hands as much as we can.
And then, if you're attacked, like you protect yourself or someone else protects you and something happens to the animal criminal that attacked someone, the people that fought and protected themselves, they're the ones that get into trouble. And
Hmm.
there seems to be a trend now where we have to overlook behavior that is physically and emotionally not just disturbing but deadly.
Yeah.
And we're living in a society today that makes no sense. It just makes no sense.
No, it doesn't, but we want to talk about these things, shed light on topics that are difficult to talk about, and um, I appreciate you, Sandra, being really vulnerable and sharing your story. For me, talking about my daughter, I was at a work meeting when I talked about it, and I also started to cry because I hadn't really had time to
Yeah.
process it, and I've had time to process it, and I'm kind of able to stand apart and look at it from above. But when you really start to think about it and all these feelings come up, it's hard to talk about all of this,
It's
but
hard.
it is. It
And
is.
look, this is fresh. This just happened in your daughter's school. And it was your job to protect your child, and you did. But the thought of, God forbid, cancel, what could have happened? What happened to the other children that this man abused? This boy. Uh, there are no words. When I think about that, it just makes me so crazy, honestly.
Yeah, and I mean, I have big issues with the child, with the parents, but I think most of
Oh,
all
yeah.
with the school, with the
Of
school,
course.
they are permitting this. And we need our children to be safe. We've gone through many things, I went through a lot of situations at school, but I had a different personality from my daughter, and I internalized
Yes.
it more. I kept it to myself and I didn't share. And my daughter, thankfully, she's more external. She talks about it, and you know,
Yeah.
she gets upset with things and lets others see it, whereas I'd go in my room and kind of write in my journal and think about it. And so people didn't
Yeah.
know what I was always going through, but I had to become strong and put up with that. But I shouldn't have been in that environment. I should have told my parents this is happening, and I
Hmm.
shouldn't have gone to you know, to one school in particular, a high school
Yeah.
where I had to be violent back in order to survive. And that
Yes,
I'm sorry that I had to do that. I mean, yeah, it made me stronger, but I could have become stronger other ways too.
absolutely.
So yeah, that I think we're at time here with this video, but thank you
Yes.
everyone for listening and we're, you know, we're just sharing things that have happened to us, but we know that others have experienced issues like this, either with your children
Yeah.
or yourselves as women. So, um, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Sandra, for sharing with us, and we'll be
And
back
and
soon.
thank you, Tony, for sharing what happened to your daughter. A lot of people would want to be on the down low about this. They wouldn't want to start trouble. No, these things need to be shared. And I really appreciate
Yes.
that you opened up about that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Goodbye, everyone.